Nice County Board of Commissioners meeting for September the 8th in session at this time. And it is customary for our board to begin each of our meetings with a prayer by a commissioner. And then we have a pledge of allegiance to the flag that our Commissioner Outlaw will lead us in. During the prayer, you're welcome to stand and join us. You're welcome to use this time to have your own prayer, or you're welcome to use it for a moment of silence, whichever you choose. And at this time, I'd like to call on Commissioner Fred Belfield to have the invocation for us. Mr. Belfield?
Let us all stand, and good morning, everyone. O Lord, how excellent is thy name. Heavenly Father, we assemble here for our regular commissioner meeting. In the name of your Son, Jesus, we pray that with the issues that we face and the decisions we have to make, that your Son, Jesus, will be here with us, leading and guiding us, that the things that we do will be in the best interest of our citizens. We know, Heavenly Father, we have this coronavirus, and we know all power is in your hand. And we know that one day you will make life better for all of us. We are depending on you. We know you're able to do it. Now bless us as we go through our agenda today. These blessings we ask in your name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Would you join us in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
When we get a break, you can get it on. I'm fine, 'cause I printed it out.
We're now on item 4 on the agenda, if you're following us. And it is the approval of the minutes for the previous month, and we only had one meeting during August, which is unusual, but you have those minutes, and I'd entertain any changes, corrections, or if none needed, an approval for the minutes.
Move for approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Minutes stand approved. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Item 5 on our agenda each month, the first meeting of the month, is public comment. And during this time, any citizens that wish to speak to the Board of Commissioners are welcome to come up. We do have a sign-up period out front before the meeting, but if you happen to miss that, the board would still like to hear from you. We'll take you at the end of the list. And if there's anything on your mind that you wish to speak to us about that is otherwise not covered on the agenda, if you do have something later on the agenda, like a public hearing, we'd ask for you to wait to that point in time to speak to the board. We did have 3 people to sign up this morning, and at this time, I would call on those in the order in which they signed up. And if you would, when you come to the front, if you just state your name and address for the record, the clerk would appreciate it. First name I have is Deborah Hardy. Ms. Hardy? Good morning. Glad to see you again.
Nice to be here. Is the mask required as I stand here?
That is your choice standing there, ma'am. If you're like me, if I put it on, you can't understand me at all, so my wife tells me so we would allow you to remove it while you're standing there.
Okay, thank you.
And the manager has learned very well how to wipe things down between each speaker.
Thank you. My name is Deborah Hardy. My address is 5952 Horns Church Road, Wilson. I'm here this morning to, once again, oppose the use of propane cannons in the county, Nash County in particular. I will try to stick to my wording because it's an emotional subject for me, and I can't express it without getting a little upset about it, so I will stick to my wording, and I do have a printout for each of you to continue my thoughts, if you would be so kind as to read those. The words "my rights" have never been in my vocabulary until now. After living in the country for 34 years, I find that my rights to peace and quiet are being violated all the time. It is loud, it is annoying, it is upsetting, And I feel like my peace and quiet has been taken away, and I want it back. I'm not speaking just for me, I'm speaking for the residents of Wilson County, mainly the residents of Nash County, where these propane cannons are located. The noise travels. I'm almost 2 miles away from the site, and I can hear it. The residents that are living close to them, I do not know how they tolerate it. It's bad enough being away from it, but right there, I don't know how they stand it. The blasting has destroyed the peace and quiet of our community, plus several other communities in the Nash County area. This has been allowed due to an interpretation of the noise ordinance regarding this noise being a part of a farming operation. It is not part of a farming operation. It is a noise violation, and it violates my rights to freedom, the freedom to enjoy my property. When my cats and my dogs can't go out, I can't garden, I can't use my backyard, it is a violation. It is a noise violation that needs to be stopped. The noise has frightened residents, children, pets, farm animals, the list continues. It travels for miles, as I've said. It's constant. When it's at night, you don't sleep. I have to run it's an air purifier. I run it on full blast so I can sleep. Another neighbor told me she just keeps turning up the TV to the point that maybe she can sleep. This is ridiculous. It's total insanity. Other methods of wildlife control have been used for hundreds of years, more likely thousands of years. Deer and crows cause a small part of the natural losses that occur. It happens. I understand farming. I appreciate farming. You are going to have losses. We passed a watermelon field on the way here that the crows supposedly are destroying. There were watermelons everywhere after they harvested. Well, those crows didn't peck every one of those watermelons. Losses are anticipated, they're accounted for, and they plan accordingly. The residents of Nash County and the surrounding communities are entitled to the right to peace and quiet. I'm asking for your help to restore those rights. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
And do I give this to you?
Yeah, give them to the clerk if you would, Ms. Hardy. Thank you. Our next speaker is Vanis Hardy. Good morning, Mr. Hardy.
Good morning, Dennis.
Madam Clerk. I'm Vanis Hardy, 5952 Horn Church Road, and I'm lucky to have this nice young lady as my bride for 45 years. I'm very proud of her this morning. I want to say thank you to each one of you for what sometimes is a thankless job. I've been approached about being a commissioner before, and I wouldn't do it for any amount of money, so I say thank you for the time that y'all give to do this job. I'm the son of a sharecropper, grew up between two tobacco roads in Harnett County. My dad sent all four of my three siblings and myself to college, never borrowed a dime. He taught me, and Dad only owned less than 10 acres of cropland. Sharecropping, as I know now, I didn't know it then, but sharecropping, as I know now, was probably the next closest thing to slavery as there has been. But my dad taught me a great lesson that when I was a senior in high school, one of the 4 farms that we tended as sharecroppers, he gave to me the tobacco crop. Had 3 acres of tobacco on it. All of a sudden, that leaf that fell on the ground was more important to me than it was when it was his. Because those 3 acres of tobacco sent me to NC State University, and I fully paid for my education in the 4 years that I was there. So I know a little bit about farming. After I graduated from NC State, became a farm manager for BB&T for 2.5 years. I left that job and went as a farm manager for Zeke Resort. A lot of you probably know that name. He was probably the largest farmer in Wilson and Nash County at the time that I was his farm manager. So I did that for 2 years, and then had the opportunity to start a furniture business. My wife and I started Hardy's Furniture in 1981. Been there almost 40 years, and God has blessed us beyond measure. In that 39 and a half years that we've been there, we have collected a lot of sales tax for Nash County. I'd be interested to have my bookkeeper to pull up and see how many dollars we had collected for Nash County during that 39 and a half years that we've been there. But we've been very, very blessed. Didn't get stay away from farming very long, because after I'd been in business 2 years, I bought a 50-acre farm. Part of that farm is in Wilson County, part of it's in Nash County on Horns Church Road. We built our home there, and it's been a great place to raise 2 children and 4 grandchildren now enjoy in the backyard until the booming starts with the propane cannons. And it actually frightens them. I approached several of you, and I hope y'all had an opportunity to hear what we have to hear. Mr. Davis, you shaking your head. I think you may have heard it. Yes. Mr. Outlaw, did you get a chance to hear it?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Cone, did you get a chance to hear it? Mr. Belfield, you get a chance to hear it?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Y'all just heard a little bit of what we hear. These particular ones with watermelons, the gentleman is courteous enough, he cuts it on at 7 and runs it to 7 or 8 at night. So he doesn't run it during the night. But the neighbor on the other side of me started in the spring, early March, with sweet potato beds, and it ran 24/7. I mean, you get up and go to the bathroom, or you'd wonder why I woke up, and it was a boom during the middle of the night trying to keep the deer off the sweet potato bed. Not quite sure why he thinks the deer are eating all night. We don't eat all night, and the deer don't eat all night. Deer hunters will tell you that early morning and late evening is when the deer come out so they can see them, but I don't understand it. Farming's changed a lot since my livelihood was dependent on it, but I know that you can farm and be successful without a propane cannon. I wonder how many of you grew up on a farm? 3, 4. Ms. Leggett, I know you're very involved in farming. Do y'all use propane cannons?
We have in the past.
Have in the past, okay. I find that only a small percentage of the farmers use the propane cannons. I talked to 4 personally that grow sweet potatoes and or watermelons that do not use propane cannons because of the contention it caused with the neighbor and the ineffectiveness of it. It's a cheap way. You can get a propane cannon for about $300. You can get a propane cylinder like you use on your gas grill, and that thing will shoot off about 30,000 times on that one propane tank. So it's a cheap way to make a big boom that worries anybody within 2 miles of it. Deborah and I, the property owner on one side was blasting in the spring, the one on the other side been blasting for the last 8 weeks for his watermelon. So we're sandwiched right between 2 of the few that use the propane cannons. You have an ordinance, a noise ordinance, and I gave the clerk one. Madam, did you give him one of these, each of these? Okay, I want to just read you. Your ordinance is right. Whoever wrote the ordinance got it right. On the first page, I've got it highlighted for you. Loud and raucous noise prohibited. The generation or maintenance of any loud or raucous noise within Nash County is hereby declared to be a public nuisance. It shall be unlawful for any person to willfully make, continue, or cause to be made, or continue any loud or raucous noise, which term shall mean any sound which, because of its volume level, duration, and character, annoys, disturbs, injures, or endangers the comfort, health, peace, or safety of reasonable persons or of ordinary sensibilities within the county limits, interferes seriously with neighboring residents' reasonable use and enjoyment of their properties. That part is right. You got it right. Somebody nailed it. Propane cannon violates everything that's on that front page. The problem Nash County has is page 3. If you'll turn to page 3 under the exemptions, I highlighted it for you, and I underlined in my wife says, a funny color, But the composer of this ordinance was very specific about exemptions for farmers, to the point that he said a tractor or piece of equipment has to have a muffler, and it has to be the muffler that was recommended by the manufacturer. Also says that noise reducing equipment in use. Doesn't say anything about noise making. It says noise reducing. Now, the Nash County ordinance, this ordinance is left up to the interpretation of the sheriff. Well, the sheriff is an elected position, and the interpretation can be based on who made contributions to it. It's kind of silly that we got an ordinance that we leave up to one person to make an interpretation, and his interpretation is completely different than what mine would be, and I think what the 7 of you would be. When he's specific enough to say that a muffler has to be on the tractor. Now, the ones of you that grew up on a farm know that a tractor without a muffler is loud, but these propane cannons that you can hear 2 miles away, just think what that is and what the composer would have done at the time he composed it had he known about a propane cannon. I seriously doubt a propane cannon was even available when this ordinance was written, or when the composer did the ordinance. I don't know. I didn't see any dates of when this was done. But it's ridiculous. And I even went as far, went to the county manager, and we then asked for the interpretation of the legal counsel for the county. And the legal counsel said because it's a farming operation, basically he can do anything he wants to do because of this exemption. Now, I don't think that was the intended exemption. I think the intended exemption was if I build a house out in the county and the man's running his tractor, that I can't call up here continuously complaining because the man's got a loud tractor or sprayer or whatever. You know, I don't think the intention was to give him the opportunity to make as much noise as he wanted to and infringe on my rights. Deborah and I built a house on that first farm that we bought 34 years ago, and I don't think there's been but one house built within 3/4 of a mile of me since we've been there. We've been very fortunate that the land's owned by people that don't sell off lots, and so, you know, there's no new residents there. The solution to the problem is you can either make an interpretation of this ordinance that's different than the sheriff or your legal counsel made and take it literally what the composer meant for it to say, or you can rewrite it and rewrite it to explicitly prohibit a propane cannon. I actually bought one to see what it looked like. Paid $300 for one. If the ones of you that hadn't heard it want to hear it, I'd be glad to bring it over here, or you can come out to the farm and we'll plug it up and let you listen to it. You know what it sounds like, so you shaking your head. They can be deafening if you're close enough to them. In fact, the first time mine went off, I was probably 20 yards from it, and of course it was propelling away from me. And I was amazed at the amount of noise that thing made. Now I know why it can travel up to 2 miles, or over 2 miles. We were hearing one from my house. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Shiloh Church. It's in Wilson County, but I kept hearing that thing on a Sunday afternoon. I said, where in the world is that one coming from? And I finally pinpointed Watermelon Field at Shiloh Church. And it travels that far that you can hear it. So what we got is we got a problem that only a few farmers are using the propane cannons now. You can address it. You can take care of it before other farmers start using it. If every farmer in Nash County would have fired these things up next spring, you would have Nash County sound like a war zone, and you'd have more people up here than you want to deal with. Much easier to deal with just Deborah and I. Thank y'all very much for your time this morning, and we'll look forward to you making some changes. We don't have to hear this again next year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hardy. Our next speaker is a Deborah Battle. You know, did I do that last time also?
No, sir, you called me right the other time.
Okay, I apologize, it does say Dorothy Battle. Please accept my apologies, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Good morning to all.
Good morning. Glad to
Giving
have
honor
you
to
back.
God for our being and respect to this board. I'm Dorothy Gibson Battle, 13343 Taylor Store Road, Nashville, NC 27856. I am before you today with the same complaint I brought last month. It's Mr. Ted B. Williams, Yard Dog Firearms Training. I'm here for the record, as my voice seems to fall on deaf ears. Chairman, Mr. Robbie Davis, you told me when I was before you last month that you typically do not respond to public comment, but staff would be in contact with you. No one has contacted me yet, and Mr. Williams continues to plague my community with his war games fantasy. We hear the same awful gunfire through the week and every weekend that is meant only to bring death. If you don't respond to public comment, why is it on the agenda? Were you not elected to serve the public? Mr. Davis, you responded to Chief Deputy Brandon Medina, quote, "Thank you for making me aware of this. We have dealt with several of these over the years. I'm going to ask Vince to give his thoughts. This should be pretty clear cut. If we have a violation, we'll be back in touch," end quote. This was your response when he talked to you about Mr. Williams' shooting. Chief Deputy Medina, quote, "The plan is to confer with Mr. Tyson and see if an amicable solution can be reached," end quote. I have been talking with Mr. Tyson about Yard Dog Firearms Training since early 2018. He had had the same job at the planning board long before, while all this shooting and training has been going on. Then, now after pressing him for an answer, this is his reply. And I'm going to read you exactly his emails, what he sent to me. Quote, "After consulting with the county attorney, we have determined that the zoning requirements of the Nash County Development Ordinance for outdoor shooting ranges are intended to apply only to commercially operated ranges where people pay to shoot. Mr. Ted Williams has been notified that he is not authorized to conduct any commercial or paid shooting activity on the subject property, including any paid firearms training courses, without first being issued a special use permit by the Nash County Board of Adjustments through a public hearing process. Mr. Williams has not applied for a special use permit at this time. If there is any evidence in the future that Mr. Williams continues to use the subject property for commercial or paid shooting activity, please contact me to determine whether the activity constitutes a zoning violation. However, the county attorney and I have also determined that there is currently no Nash County ordinance that regulates non-commercial or unpaid shooting activity within the county's rural unincorporated areas. Therefore, Mr. Williams, this really burns me up. Mr. Williams is free at this time to use the subject property for his own recreational shooting activity or to offer free firearms training provided that no money is exchanged. I would encourage you to continue to contact the Nash County Sheriff's Office if you believe the shooting activity to be in violation of the Nash County Noise Ordinance. Please let me know if you have any additional questions or if I can provide any further assistance. Thank you. Adam Tyson's Planning Director. This is the next email I got from him. I certainly understand your frustration in this situation. You are correct that Mr. Williams has admitted to using the site on Taylor Store Road for commercial or paid firearms training activity in the past. However, the land use regulations of the Nash County Unified Development Ordinance are intended to address ongoing violations. They are not intended for or effective at punishing past violations. All this has been going on since 2017, and now he's talking about the past. When did that occur? Where was he? Like I said, I'm really fired up. Excuse me for my temperament this morning. Just give me a minute to get my composure. is utterly ridiculous. In the meantime, the next opportunity for public comment before the Nash County Board of Commissioners will be Tuesday, September 8th, 2020 at 9 a.m. Ordinance number 14 clearly defines the continuous noise made 5 to 8 hours by Mr. Ted Williams. You have allowed Mr. Ted Williams to come to our community and ruin our lives for his recreational, commercial, and war game fantasies as he chooses with your blessings. When you have the power to stop it, we have ordinances that the 3 named governing bodies apply or interpret at your own discretion. Why should anyone apply for a permit when you allow Mr. Williams to do as he pleases without consequences since 2017? Which of the 3 governing bodies can apply or change the ordinance to do what is right and serve the people or public? Each body keeps passing the buck to the next while the public suffers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Battle. Was there anyone else that wished to speak this morning to the commissioners under public comment?
Ms. Davis, I'd like to follow up on what she had to say, if I could.
You'd like to follow up on what she had to say?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Hardy, come forward then, and I'll give you a couple of minutes.
You want to go back to how you become a farmer?
Yeah, Vannis Hardy, 5952 Hornchurch Road. We've had a very similar problem to what Ms. Battle has had. And my answer was, is it a commercial shooting range? My question to you is, what difference does it make whether I pay Mr. Outlaw to fire my rifle or not? That bullet doesn't know the difference. The main part of your ordinance is you have to have a berm. This landowner, I've questioned him about a berm shooting high-powered rifles at targets over 1,000 yards with no berm. That bullet has the ability to go two miles. Makes no difference. That bullet doesn't know whether I paid Mr. Outlaw or whether I didn't pay Mr. Outlaw. So that part needs to be addressed in your ordinance or in your interpretation of the ordinance. Doesn't make any difference whether I'm shooting and I paid to shoot it or didn't pay to shoot it. That bullet's still gonna land somewhere, and Mr. Belfield, I hope it's not on you. So that's my comment there. It's a dangerous, dangerous situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hardy. Anyone else here to speak under public comment? All right, well, we'll move to item number 6, which is a resolution honoring the public service of Mr. Gus Tullis. And I would call on Mr. Outlaw to make this presentation, if he would. I know Mr. Outlaw used his services last in his term, so I asked Mr. Outlaw if he would put this together for us. Mr. Outlaw?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Tullis, if you would come to the floor podium, please. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Good to see you.
Good to be here.
Always good to see you. On behalf of the Nash County Board of Commissioners, it is my privilege to read and present a resolution honoring and thanking Augustus H. Gus Tullis for his many years of public service. Gus has dedicated his adult life in service to others, including the last 12 years as a member of the North Carolina Board of Transportation. During his tenure on this board, he has proved to be a strong advocate for the needs of Nash County citizens, and for that, sir, we are very thankful. Gus, on a personal note, please know that I highly value our personal affiliation through the Board of Transportation, but more importantly, I highly value our personal friendship. May God bless you with many more years of good health as you go forward and do what you do in the community and the community at large. After I read and present the resolution, I will defer back to the chairman, and he will call for any comments that you wish to make or any other member of the board. Resolution honoring the public service of Augustus H. Tullis. Whereas Augustus Gus H. Tullis has dedicated his life to serving the citizens of Nash County, North Carolina, and for the last 12 years has served as a member of the North Carolina Board of Transportation, and whereas during his tenure as a member of the Board of Transportation from January 1, 2008 until July 30, 2020, Gus Tullis has always worked diligently to represent the needs of Nash County citizens with enthusiasm and dedication, and is always available to assist wherever called upon. And whereas his wisdom and guidance as a member of the Board of Transportation have contributed significantly to the success of Nash County and Eastern North Carolina by promoting and serving the transportation and economic development needs of the region, and whereas Gus Tullis has assisted with numerous economic development projects within Nash County, including but not limited to the development of the Whitaker's Business Industry Center and the Middlesex Corporate Center. He played an important role in the relocation of the North Carolina Division of Motor Vehicles to Rocky Mount and has been responsible for road and access planning and development for various industries located in Nash County. And whereas Gus Tullis was instrumental in obtaining funds for the Loop Road at Nash Community College and has assisted with funding of many other Nash County projects. In addition, Gus Tullis has served on the Rocky Mount Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, MPO, for the last 12 years, and whereas Gus Tullis, during his career, has provided insurance services to the citizens to our citizens at Gus H. Tullis Insurance, and has served as president of the North Carolina Jaycees, the Rocky Mount Rotary Club, and the Rocky Mount Chamber of Commerce, and as a board member of the University of North Carolina Board of Governors. He also has served as chairman of the Salvation Army Advisory Board and currently is chairman of the DeLeon Carter Foundation Board. Further, Gus Tullis received the East Carolina Boy Scout Distinguished Service Award in 2005 and the Rocky Mount Chamber's Distinguished Citizen of the Year in 2016. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Commissioners of Nash County hereby expresses its sincere thanks and appreciation to Gus H. Tullis for his many years of dedicated service to Nash County and Eastern North Carolina, and be it further resolved that this resolution be placed in the permanent minutes of the Board of County Commissioners of Nash County, and that a copy of this resolution be presented to Gus H. Tullis as an expression of our appreciation. Adopted this 8th day of September 2020, Nash County Board of Commissioners, signed by Robbie B. Davis, Chairman, Nash County Board of Commissioners. And I would just close with one other comment that is not on here. It's a very small project in many people's eyes, but Halifax Road was closed due to weather conditions. The road washed out, the bridge, and I contacted Mr. Tullis, and literally within a matter of days, they temporarily fixed that road and opened it up to traffic of over 5,000 cars per day. And I want you to know that I personally appreciate that. I know it was a temporary fix. I know we'll have to close it again for the permanent fix, but your reaction to that was appreciated, and everything I have ever contacted you on, you have been very prompt and courteous to me, and I appreciate that, and I do really highly value our association and our friendship, sir. Thank you for being here today. I'm going to come down. I'm going to ask the chairman and the manager to come down to the podium with me. We're going to mask up for safety purposes.
Yes, sir. Wow, what a handsome thing.
We're going to present you with this resolution of appreciation and thanks from the Nash County Board. I'm going to kind of break rules. I got some sanitizer up here, but if you would just give me a handshake, thank you, sir. Always good to see you.
Very humbling. Thank you. Very humbling.
would like to say something, that would be fine, and then I'm gonna give the board as well an opportunity to say something.
Well, this is just to sit here and look at every one of you, and here you are honoring me on service. Just think about it, and I've been having a good time looking at all the pictures and how far back a lot of you have been involved in this. So I thank each and every one of you for the time and effort that you spent, and there are probably stories like you've shared some nice things that maybe I did. I'm sure that your constituents, Mary Wells, and everybody can say some wonderful things about y'all, so I commend you. And I look at two-legged over here. I think the last time I was here, you were being sworn in, and your beautiful family was with you, and you've done an incredible job since then, and I know you'll continue. But this is very humbling, and I'm thrilled to death. And the 12 years have gone by really, really fast, and I've had the good fortune of serving with 4 different governors, and each one of those have been great, and they've all had their agenda for the Board of Transportation, so it's been a wonderful opportunity to see real leadership at work and to be a part of it. But we've, here in Nash County, well, in the 6 counties that I represent, we've put a little over $2 billion in these last 12 years. So I think we've, you know, got a lot done. You've mentioned a couple of them in here, and then somebody really did the homework. Really went back on this thing, and I'm thrilled with it and flattered. But it's been wonderful, and I've enjoyed working with each and every one of you. And I commend the great work that you do, and I thank you for this. Mr. Chairman, it's very humbling. Anytime somebody starts bragging on you a little bit, that's, you get a lump in your throat, but I'm very appreciative, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tullis. Any board member like to say anything? I'd be glad to hear from you. Mr. Belfield?
Yes, I want to say first, congratulations. Stayed on the Transportation Board for 12 years. It's quite a tenure. And I've known you ever since you graduated from East Carolina. I remember you riding with me. We were having county tours on all practice demonstrations. That's when I got to know you. At that time, you and your father were running a tractor equipment business, and you went from that to insurance. And I've served on boards with you, and you're just a wonderful person to work with. And you know how to get things done. When they completed the bridge over Western Boulevard and Sunset Avenue and Western Boulevard, I was riding through that when they first opened it up. I said, this is a dark area here. They need some light in here. And I contacted you about that. You said, you know, you're the second person that has mentioned that to me. He said, we'll see if we can't get that done. And they've been working on it, and they've got some of it already completed. And it's a lot better than what it was. We had such a dark area there. But anyway, again, congratulations. Enjoyed working with you.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
I would like to say something. First, Gus, we appreciate all you're doing, but I value more your friendship and the things that you have done for Nash County and Rocky Mount. Try to pull us together instead of dividing us. And we've got a big job ahead of us, and I know you're going to be in the middle of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. On behalf of the whole board, Mr. Tullis, I certainly want to echo what each one of them said, Mr. Outlaw's comments and the resolution itself. I know I've called you many times during your tenure there on the board, but I was reluctant sometimes to call you because I didn't want to bother you, but I tell you, act like it took you to death every time somebody called and asked you for something. So I got where I didn't mind calling you quite as much the last few years, but every time I called, I'd have to say you were right on it within a matter of hours, if not minutes. Always heard back from you, and I greatly appreciate that. I've known you a long time. Remember building for you early in my career, back in the early 80s. Did a building or two for you, and I appreciate that as well. But I really hated to see you come off of this board, and I'm sure our new member will be as responsive, but it just seemed like you had a way to know what buttons to push or what phone number to call to get something done. And it didn't really matter how small it was. So I recently called you to check out a contractor that we had that was low bidder on the job here in Nash County that nobody seemed to know. And he had done quite a bit of DOT work. And there again, in a matter of a few days, you called me back, gave me a real thorough report that made us feel better about awarding that particular contract. And just everything you've done, large, small. And it is amazing, in your 12 years, I know some of this work was started with our previous board member, but it is amazing how much has been done in Nash County in the last 12 years. I feel like now we are probably really not quite there, but we're a lot closer in what's happened in Nash County to Wilson County than we were when you first went on the board, and for that, we thank you, citizens of Nash County. Thank you. And thank you for taking your time to be here this morning.
Thank you very much.
Sir, appreciate you.
Good luck to you, and God bless you.
We're trying to make our health director proud of us, Mr. Tullis. Okay, we'll keep moving, and the next item on the agenda is a public hearing for general rezoning request to rezone 1.02 acres at 8256 Savage Road from GI General Industry to A1 Agriculture, and I call on Mr. Tyson at this time. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. The main thing of note about this rezoning is it is a voluntary downzoning. Typically, when the board considers a rezoning, it's to allow more intensive use of property or perhaps higher density development of property. This particular request is going in the other direction to lower the intensive use of the property. The subject property is shown in the red block on both maps, the aerial photo on the left and the zoning map on the right there. It is 1.02 acre portion of the larger, approximately 15.8 acre tract of land owned by Mr. Orator A. Mills Jr., located at 8256 Savage Road. The property is north of the town of Spring Hope, and it's on the east side of the Orator Mills Septic Tank Company in this GI General Industrial Zoning District that is shown in purple here. The subject property includes an existing single-wide manufactured home, which is considered a legal non-conforming land use. That means that although manufactured homes are not currently permitted in this industrial zone, this particular one was established prior to the adoption of those regulations. There is no public water or sewer service, and so the site is served by a private well and an on-site septic system. This is a site photo of the subject 1.02 acres. You can see the single-wide mobile home pictured there. And then off to the left, or the west, if you were looking at the map, you can see the edge of the septic tank company operation right there through the woods. The property owner plans to subdivide the subject property as shown on this survey plat, so to create this lot around that manufactured home. And they want to replace the manufactured home with a newly constructed single-family dwelling. Our ordinance permits the replacement of single-family residential non-conforming land use structures with similar or larger single-family residential structures, but it goes on to specify that these non-conforming structures have to be replaced in the same location. As you can see from this plan, the single-wide to be removed is located here, and the new single-family dwelling to be constructed is located behind it on an additional part of the lot that has not been previously developed. In order to do that, the property owner has requested to rezone the property from GI General Industrial to A1 Agricultural. The A1 Agricultural Zoning District is primarily intended to accommodate agricultural land uses as well as farm residences and scattered non-farm residences, including manufactured homes. The approval of the request would have 4 primary impacts. Number one, it would recognize this new single-family dwelling that's to be constructed as a permitted land use. It would allow the new single-family dwelling to be constructed in the proposed location behind the existing single-wide mobile home. It would reduce the front setback from 75 feet to 50 feet, while slightly increasing the side and rear setbacks from 10 to 15 feet and 20 to 30 feet respectively. And finally, the most important implication is that after the rezoning, the future development of this 1.02 acres would be restricted to just the land uses in the A1 zoning district instead of the wide range of intensive assembling, fabricating, and manufacturing land uses that would currently be permitted on it by the GI, General Industrial Zoning District. There was a previous zoning action very similar to this approved by the board on July 8, 2013, which removed a lot on the west side of the business from the GI zoning district. Right here, that used to be a part of the purple GI. It was removed also for residential development, and so this request follows the same template of what was approved previously in July 2013. The land development plan designates this property as suburban growth area. As you can see from this map, it's very uniformly suburban growth area. And the primarily agricultural and residential land uses that will be permitted by the A1 are a better fit or are more consistent than the wide range of assembling, fabricating, and manufacturing land uses that are permitted by the current GI. And so the request is consistent with the land development plan. It would obviously not be spot zoning because it would be an expansion of the very large A1 zoning district that is established around it. The request is consistent with the land use plan as we stated, and again, it is an example of voluntary downzoning, meaning that the A1 requested zone is more restrictive in terms of land uses than the current more intensive GI zoning district. The Technical Review Committee reviewed this request back on July 31st and recommended approval. The Planning Board considered this request on August 17th. No members of the public other than a representative for the applicant addressed the board with regard to the request, and the Planning Board voted unanimously to recommend approval of Consistency Statement A, finding the request to be reasonable, in the public interest, consistent with the recommendations of the Land Development Plan, and not spot zoning. And then secondly, approval of the request itself to rezone the 1.02 acres from GI to A1. This is a two-motion process. The board will need to adopt a consistency statement and then a second motion to either approve or deny the zoning map amendment. The property owner and applicant, Mr. Mills, is present with us this morning. He let me know that he did not have any additional statements, but he does stand ready to answer any questions that the board may have about the request. And I'll take any questions that the board has about the request.
Any questions, Mr. Tyson, before I call for a public hearing on this matter? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion for a public hearing at this time.
So moved.
So moved.
Have a motion by Commissioner Leggett, second by Commissioner Combs. Any questions on that motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Ladies and gentlemen, we are now in a public hearing to consider this rezoning request. If there's anyone here today that wishes to speak for or against this rezoning request, we'd like to hear from you at this time. If you would come forward and state your name and address for the record. Not seeing anyone wishing to speak, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing at this time.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Combs, second by Commissioner Bellfield. Any questions on that motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? We are now have the public hearing closed. And is there any more comments from the board before I call for a motion? No discussion from the board?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve consistency statement A.
All right, I have a motion on the table to approve consistency statement A. Is there a second to that motion?
Yes.
And a second by Commissioner Richardson. Any questions on the motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries. We now need a motion to approve or deny the zoning map amendment.
So moved.
I have a motion to approve the zoning map amendment by Commissioner Combs. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Bellfield. Any questions on the motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Property now stands rezoned. Only a two motion. That
Correct.
Okay, all right, that is good. So we now have it done. Glad to see you this morning, and on behalf of the board, I've seen your name many, many times in my career. I know you do a lot of good things for Nash County, pull a lot of permits, home permits, which helps increase our tax base. I remember a number of years ago, been invited by a friend we shared at that time, Mr. James Lyons, to come out to a feast you had at your place, and may still have it, I'm not sure, but thoroughly enjoyed that. But on behalf of the board, Mr. Mills, I just want to thank you for what all you do for Nash County. You've been adding to our tax base for a very long time, and I know you're a very hard-working man, and glad to see you this morning, sir. Thank you. And glad you brought us an easy rezoning request this morning. With that done, we'll move on to item number 8, which is a request to add some roads to the DOT State Maintained Secondary Roads, and I'll call on Mr. Tyson to present that as well.
This is a petition that's been submitted by North Carolina Department of Transportation District Engineer Bobby Liverman. It's requesting the adoption of a resolution by the Nash County Board of Commissioners to request the NCDOT Division of Highways to add Magnolia Road and Mattie Road to the state maintained secondary road system, provided that those roads meet the minimum established standards and criteria. You can see on the aerial photo, the map before you, you have Magnolia Road right here, and then Mattie Road forms a T intersection with it right here. These are interior subdivision roads. Both of those roads are 50-foot public rights-of-way that were located off the south side of Preacher Joyner Road. They were constructed and dedicated in 2005 by Farrell Homes, Inc., Mr. Wayne Farrell, in relation to the development of Section 2 of the Magnolia Plantation subdivision. And that is the survey map for Magnolia Plantation Section 2 that is on your screen right now. The NCDOT District Engineer has recently determined that both roads satisfy the applicable construction standards and eligibility criteria for addition to the state main secondary road system. This resolution will be forwarded to the North Carolina Board of Transportation that will make the official adoption of these roads into the state maintenance system. There is one exception of note here, if I can go back. The western cul-de-sac of Mattie Road has been omitted from the request by the NCDOT District Engineer due to some unresolved issues related to existing non-conforming residential driveways. I believe there are some property owners around the south side of the cul-de-sac that have driveways too close to one another to satisfy the NCDOT rules. And the district engineer has attempted to negotiate that situation. It remains unresolved. But rather than put the rest of the roads on hold, he's proposing that we move forward, just excluding that cul-de-sac. And then if that issue were to be resolved, that could be brought separately for adoption at a later point. So this is the entirety of Magnolia Road and the majority of Mattie Road, with the exception of that western cul-de-sac. The resolution that the district engineer has forwarded is included in your packet. This does not require a public hearing. It's just a simple vote by the board, and I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for Mr. Tyson on this matter? Mr. Tyson, do we make any attempt, I guess we don't, I guess it's a DOT thing, to let those citizens on that end know how important it is to get DOT to accept this so it won't come back to us at a later date when the road deteriorates and there's no one to maintain it?
Right. The party that can save the most grief there is the developer. Of course, there's a gap between when a road is built and dedicated and when the state will consider it, because there is a ratio of homes that have to be located there.
15 years in this case, looks like.
That's right.
Yeah. But do we get involved in trying to make them understand? I'm sure it's a minor item they got to correct.
Typically, what we do is reach out to the developer in the event that we realize it. In this particular case, I think it was the citizens themselves, the residents, that realized they were having a problem. They were able to join together and make some repairs to the road and bring it up to specification for this adoption to take place, and then they won't have to do it. they call these orphan roads, and they're a problem throughout North Carolina because of that gap between when they're built and when they're eligible to be taken by the state.
In this case, the developer is not with us
I believe that's the case.
anymore, so I just hate to see it sit there and not get taken care of when it looks like DOT's trying the best to make it happen.
That's right.
So your answer is we don't generally get involved in that
We
part?
typically don't, other than if we realize that the road has not been adopted and it is still in good condition, we will, I guess maybe a nudge is the best description of what we provide to the developer to pursue that before it becomes a larger issue.
Since that developer is no longer with us, could we possibly look at those property owners and nudge them a little bit? Is that carrying it too far?
The property owners on the west end,
Yeah, with the cul-de-sac that's going to be left out.
right, they are in active discussions with the DOT district engineer and are very aware of the
Okay,
situation.
so you think they will resolve it, hopefully?
I hope they will.
Okay. All right.
They've reached an impasse right now, but I don't think the importance of having it done is lost on any of them.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Any other questions?
Should I just ask Mr. Tyson possibly to give us an update on that at our next meeting?
Sure,
Or possibly earlier in an email or something?
sure. I'll confer with the district engineer and provide that to you.
Okay. No other
Well,
discussion?
if they-
Excuse me. Go ahead, Mr. Bellfield.
If the developer is no longer in existence, did anyone take it over? As the developer, is there more property there to be developed?
In this particular case, Mr. Bellfield, I don't think there was anyone that came in when the previous developer deceased.
And it would take somebody to invest in some additional road construction to create the opportunity for additional lots beyond what we have here.
There's no other discussion. I'd entertain a motion to adopt the resolution.
Move for adoption of the resolution.
Have a motion by Commissioner Outlaw. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Wells. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? The resolution stands adopted, sir.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is a resolution authorizing asset inventory assessment grant application. I'll call on Mr. Boone to make this presentation. Morning, sir.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, fellow commissioners. You may recall about a year ago, I stood before the board with a similar request. The North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality has a asset inventory and assessment grant program they administer, and the county submitted 2 applications in the past grant cycle. We came up just short, just below the cutoff line, but we're looking to submit applications again this year, both for the water system and for the sewer system. And the intent of the grant, as outlined in the memo that you have in front of you and also submitted this past year, is to develop a comprehensive geographic or GIS system for the county's water and sewer system. It's something that we currently lack, something that we recognize the need to develop. We've started to work on as best we can with the time and resources we have available, but this grant would greatly accelerate our efforts on both those projects. So asking for the commissioners to approve the resolution or authorize the chairman to approve the resolutions again this year, and we'll cross our fingers, resubmit, and hope that we're selected. You will note there is a grant match for each of these grants. Some of that is, can include in-kind services, the other is the cash match. But again, the maximum grant is $150,000, and the county would have to match that grant with a minimum of $2,250. And certainly we have the resources to do that. So with that said, if there are any questions, I'll be glad to answer those. But again, I think this will be a great step forward for the county for both the water and sewer system.
Any questions of Mr. Boone on this item? If not, I'd entertain a motion to adopt the request at this time.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Outlaw. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Leggett. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Stands approved, sir. Thank you.
sir.
It'd be great to get this going while we were still fairly small. Next item, number 10, is,
Mr. Chairman, and
Yes.
I apologize for leaving the meeting a couple of times, but I've been trying to get in touch with Mr. Long. He is on his way.
Okay.
So if we can push that item back until he arrives.
that's why I paused, I looked and didn't see him with us. So we'll move to item number 11, if the clerk will remind me to go back to 10. Item number 11 is a community development block grant, citizen participation plan for 2020, 2021 funding years, and we'll call on Ms. McGee at this time to make this presentation. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning. The purpose of this agenda item is to present the amended citizen participation plan for the 2020-2021 Community Development Block Grant Program funding years for your adoption. This plan is designed to meet the requirements for participating in CDBG programs by 12 state agencies, which are listed in your packet. This plan ensures that citizens will be provided adequate opportunity for meaningful involvement on a continuing basis and for participation in planning, implementing, and assessing the CDBG programs. It contains subjects such as objectives of the plan, public hearing details, program accessibility, citizen access to records, timely information and submission of views and proposals, and response to proposals and complaints. It provides us provisions for emergency situations such as the coronavirus, for public notices from 10 days to 5 days in advance of public hearings, options for virtual attendance, and outreach procedures in lieu of newspaper publications. So the recommended action is to approve the resolution to adopt the Community Development Block Grant Citizen Participation Plan for 2020-2021 funding years. And in your packet, you have a resolution and then a copy of the plan.
Any questions, Ms. McGee, on this item? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to adopt the resolution.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Wells, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Leggett. Any questions on the motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Motion stands approved, the resolution stands approved. Glad to sign it. You have the next item as well, item number 12,
Yes.
legislative goals.
The North Carolina Association of County Commissioners is currently involved in its legislative goals process. Every 2 years in the months preceding a long session of the General Assembly, the NCACC engages counties in this process, which enables commissioners across the state to reach a consensus on legislative priorities and speak with one voice through the NCACC. To develop its goals, the NCACC is presently soliciting input from all 100 counties. Attached is Exhibit A is a list of possible legislative priorities from Nash County. I do have one proposed change, which we've had before, and this was recommended by Commissioner Outlaw under tax and financing, and this would be to support increased funding for water and wastewater projects in Tier 1 and 2 counties. All of the goals fall under NCACC goals of agriculture, environment, health and human services, general government, justice and public safety, public education, and tax and finance. Would you like for me to go through the goals individually, or have you read them and don't need for me to do that?
How does the board feel?
We read.
We good? Mr. Bellfield?
Oh, I was just going to say, most of these left over where they didn't get accomplished in the last long session, so We have any locally added ones? I believe you mentioned one. I didn't recognize it.
The new one, one of the new ones is provide for and fund a comprehensive approach to rural mosquito control in the state. And let me look down and see if there's any other new ones.
I think that was the only one when we discussed them. We found, Mr. Belfield, if we will keep our list as condensed as the board can agree to, we get better results, as you know, having
Yeah,
been
well, if you
involved in
don't-
it a long time.
If you don't, they're gonna do it.
You're right, yeah,
Board of Directors up there will
yeah.
do it. They're not gonna present with so many. And they try to present the broad ones that
That's
cover
right. Affect the most
a
counties,
lot of counties.
yeah. Any other comments?
Just want to make one
Sure.
comment, Mr. Chairman. It seems to me that for rural Nash County to prosper and grow, that broadband is key, and we're working on that. We're making good headway on that. But it also seems to me that we've got to have water and sewer, and we need it to run all the way to the Wake County line, Middlesex, Bailey. We need it all out in the rural areas where we're expecting, I think, in the next 5 to 10 years, significant growth. And we see that with some of the development from Mr. Williams, and you're going to see more development like that because I'm talking to people that they're looking at doing that in these areas. And we really need to push to try to get some funding, if possible, for water and sewer out in these areas. That's just, in my mind, is extremely critical. Middlesex Corporate Park, for example, if we had everything we need there, that park would probably explode. Wake County's moving this way, and we need to be prepared for that move.
Thank you, Mr. Outlaw. Other comments? Patsy, what are you wishing us to do? You want us to go ahead and adopt this
Yes,
as our list this morning?
yes, we're recommending that you adopt the attached
Okay.
resolution, and the resolution references Exhibit A, but I would like to recommend that we have the amended list to
Right.
include the water and sewer.
Okay. Your
And then
request-
we'll submit them to NCACC immediately following your approval.
Okay, I request to have a motion to adopt the list as presented with the one addition about the rural water and sewer additional funding.
So moved.
Have a motion to approve the resolution and the list, and a second by Commissioner Combs. Any questions on the motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate you
you.
working on this. We'll now move to item number 13, which is a North Carolina Governor Highway Safety Program. This is our third year in this program, and each year we need to adopt a resolution supporting this and providing the necessary funding. I call on Donna Wood, our Finance Director, for this presentation. Good morning.
The first item, as you mentioned, is a resolution. The Sheriff's Office received a 4-year grant beginning October 1st, 2018, and it will end September 30th, 2022. Each year of the grant, the Governor's Highway Safety Program requires the board to approve a local government resolution authorizing the federal funding contract. The Year 3 contract is for a total award of $115,335 with $57,688. 50% from the federal government and $57,667 as a local appropriation. The action requested is to approve the contract resolution, and the funds were budgeted with the original budget ordinance for fiscal year '21.
Any questions on this item? This is the third of 4 years. I thought it was 3 years.
It's the third.
But it is a 4 year, so we'll see this again next year.
It is.
Okay, didn't realize that. Good. Any other questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve?
Got a motion by Commissioner Combs, a second by Commissioner Leggett. Any questions on that motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Motion stands approved. We'll move on to item number 14, which is budget amendments. Ms. Wood?
Okay. The following budget amendments are presented for the board's consideration for fiscal year '21. The first of the budget amendments are reappropriations from fund balance, and they total altogether $118,703. The first one is with the Sheriff's Office. It's a reappropriation of program donations which were unspent in fiscal year 2020. Total amount of those reappropriations, $35,212. The next item within the appropriations is emergency services. It's a reappropriation of unspent fiscal year 2020 supplemental emergency management grant funds totaling $26,824. Next item is within aging services, which is a reappropriation of the Senior Health Insurance Information Program, the Medicare Improvement Payment and Patient and Provider Act, the Senior Center Program, Senior Center donations, and cost share programs, which were unspent in 2020, totaling $46,315. Next item is for Parks and Recreation. This is a reappropriation of unspent local sponsorship support, $5,162. And the final reappropriation is with Cooperative Extension. It's a reappropriation of unspent funds for fiscal year 2020 for the Farm to Early Care Education Grant, the Master Food Volunteer Program, and the North Carolina Ag Ventures Grant totaling $5,190. The next budget amendment is with the Department of Social Services. This amendment is to adjust the budget for additional funding received for permanency planning, which is 100% federal and state funds to support direct services aimed at ensuring safety, permanence, and well-being for children, and CCDC administrative funds, which are 100% federal and state for administrative costs of subsidized child care services programs. The revenues will be used to offset non-reimbursable for anticipated chargebacks due to increased monitoring, fraud, and high staff turnover. It's a total of $14,106. No county funds are requested. The next item is emergency services. This amendment is to appropriate funding provided by Duke Energy Foundation to assist with the installation of a transfer switch at Nash Community College's continuing education building for emergency shelter operations, coastal reception center operations, FEMA Disaster Recovery Center, and other emergency circumstances. It's $9,450. This was actually received in fiscal year '20, but it was set aside, so we can now recognize the revenue again, but no county funds are requested for that. Juvenile Justice Community Program. This amendment is to correct the funding as budgeted for fiscal year 2021 for the Office of Juvenile Justice 7th District TFC program sponsored by the Methodist Home for Children to assist with alternative to commitment to secure facilities for out-of-the-home placements of youth in the 7th Judicial District. It's for $5,433. No county funds are requested. The next item is Senior Services HCCBG. At the time the budget was adopted, final funding had not been set for the Home Community Care Block Grant. Therefore, amounts from previous year were used for budgeting. This amendment allocates funds according to the 2021 HCCBG grant. It's a total of $25,500 with only an additional $500 from fund balance. The next item is Senior Services. This amendment is to adjust the budget to accommodate additional donation revenues received. It's $1,000. No county funds are requested. The next item is also Senior Services. At the time the budget was adopted, final funding had not been set for the caregiver grant. Therefore, previous funding amounts were used for budgeting. This amendment is to adjust the budget to accommodate the additional funds received with the caregiver grant program. It's an additional $4,085. No county funds are requested. And the final Senior Services item, budget item, at the time the budget was adopted, final funding had not been set for the Senior Center General Purpose Grant. Therefore, previous funding amounts were used for budgeting. This amendment is to adjust the budget to accommodate the funds received with the Senior Center General Purpose Grant and the related 25% local match. It's actually a decrease in that program of $78. The next item is Health Department Budget Amendment. This amendment is to appropriate additional state funding to expand clinical support by employing a clinical service provider to address maternal mortality and severe maternal morbidity. This funding will be used to hire or contract with an obstetric care provider to provide prenatal and well woman care, inclusive of family planning services for postpartum women to enrolled participants. It's $40,000, no county funds are requested. The next item, also with the Health Department, this amendment is to appropriate state funding to local health departments to purchase equipment to augment and strengthen the state's maternal health system of care through implementation of telehealth services. $7,500, no county funds are requested. This next item is Capital Reserve Fund. The second anniversary of the closing date of the home health sale was August 31st, 2020. Based on the contract agreement, the county is permitted to release the remaining restricted funds as designated. This budget amendment is to transfer the remaining restricted funds held as part of the home health sale agreement totaling $246,332 to Capital Reserve Fund for future use with a health facility project. The next item is administrative building. This is actually our final budget amendment today. This budget amendment is to budget capital funds to replace the administrative building chiller. This is an unexpected capital item and was not budgeted as part of the fiscal year 2021 budget ordinance. The current chiller is 8 years old, and the chiller barrel has a leak that, if just repaired, is estimated to cost between $62,000 up to $100,000, depending on the damage to the compressors. Given the age of the unit and the possible risk of one or more damaged compressors, the recommendation is to replace the entire unit, and that cost is estimated at $180,000, and the request is to pull that money from our fund balance for that capital.
All right, that is 15 budget amendments. Any questions on any of those while Ms. Wood is before us?
The administrative building here, the chiller,
Yes, sir.
was there any guarantee on them? I know you said 8 years old. So there was no guarantee on it, the life of it?
I think Mr. Boone is behind you if you want him to answer that, Ms. Wood.
Real quick, we checked, the barrel had a 1-year warranty.
A 1-year warranty?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
That could be an expensive every year item then, couldn't it, Mr. Boone? Okay, any other questions?
Expensive item for just a 1-year warranty.
Yeah, I agree with you.
This is the thing we thought was gonna be 300,000, but it came down, he got it.
What was your question, Mr. Lamb?
During budget time, we talked about
That was a boiler.
the boiler.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
This is a different item. I had the same thought when I first saw it.
Yeah, yeah.
Correct, Mr. Boone?
That's correct.
Okay. Other questions? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the 15 budget amendments.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Outlaw, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Cone. Any questions on the motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? They stand approved, Ms. Wood, thank you. Next item is board appointment is the TDA, the only thing you have?
Yes.
Okay, we do have one outstanding one there for a collector that I've just had to spend a lot of time on, trying to wait for all those people to get back to work, quite frankly, and they are beginning to come back some, so we'll try to tie that down in the next couple of months. We won't be meeting again until January, so I've got a little bit of time there. But if you do come up with someone you know that works for or owns a hotel, I'll be glad to hear from any board member. Next item is another good item on our agenda today is administration of oath of our tax collector, Doris Sumner. And Madam Clerk, did you give me that back? You did, yes.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes, please.
it is an honor to present to the board Doris Sumner to be our new fully certified tax administrator. The Board of Commissioners appoint the county attorney, the county manager, the clerk to the board, and the tax administrator. So this is one of those positions that get direct appointment by the Board of Commissioners. And y'all know the great job she's done, and I recommend to the board Doris Sumner, which is, I realize y'all are going to do that, but I want to formally recommend to the board Doris Sumner to be our tax administrator.
We don't use a Bible to do this one,
We
or
do,
do we?
we do,
I think we did before.
yes.
Here you go.
Mr. Lamb, if you told us not to, we would have a discussion about it, sir. I do want you to know that. Good morning.
Good morning,
And
sir.
congratulations to
Thank
you. I
you.
know you worked real hard for this.
Yes, sir.
If you would repeat after me, I, Doris Sumner, do solemnly swear
I, Doris Sumner, do solemnly swear
that I will support and maintain the Constitution and laws of the United States
that I will support and maintain the laws and Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
not inconsistent therewith,
not inconsistent therewithin,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of my office as tax collector,
and I will faithfully discharge the duties of my office as tax collector,
excuse me, let's say tax assessor of
tax
Nash County.
assessor of Nash County,
Correct, North Carolina,
North Carolina,
and that I will not allow my actions
that I will not allow my actions
or assessor to be influenced by personal
of assessor to be influenced by personal
or political friendships
or political friendships
or obligations,
or obligations,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Thank you, ma'am. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Just so happens your next item on the agenda, as you already know, monthly tax report. Go
Yes,
ahead,
sir.
ma'am.
All right, at this time, you have before you the monthly tax report. As you know, the tax collector will provide a monthly report showing the board the amount of taxes collected and efforts being made to collect taxes. This report is designed to keep the board current on activities in the tax collector's office. The report is for your information only and does not require approval. It is recommended that you accept the report so that it will be noted in the minutes. And I'll be glad to answer if anyone has any questions.
Any questions on the report? Consider it accepted then, ma'am. If you want to go ahead with item number 18.
Yes, sir, thank you. And refunds, we do not have any for the month to be considered.
No refunds this month. Any other comment you'd like to make?
Well, I'd just like to say thank you for the appointment. I will certainly try to do my very best, and I look forward to serving the citizens and taxpayers of Nash County, and I appreciate the support of the board, the county manager's office, Stacy, and Mr. Durham. Thank you so much.
Very pleased to have you reach that threshold.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Stacy, any update on that item I skipped?
No, we are obviously still waiting on his arrival. I do have the item here. I'll be glad to present it, and then if he comes in and you all have questions or want to add to it.
I'll go ahead and finish up in the next two items, and see
Okay.
if he does.
Okay.
But you are expecting it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. We'll keep moving.
Okay.
We are now on item number 19, which is commissioner comments. Any commissioner have any comments they'd like to make this morning?
I'd like to ask if Ms. Schatzer could please give us kind of an overview of the mid-month meeting, the presenters we're going to have, And also, we normally have our committee reports, and I know most of our committees are probably not meeting, so that may be something you might want to consider deferring those to the next mid-month. I don't know.
Well, we have confirmed Mr. Dion, and you can help me with his last name, with the airport. He will be with us September the 21st to give an update on the airport.
Who's doing the internal?
We have not identified anybody for the internal yet. I mean, any suggestions?
You and I
are-
can talk
are-
unless
yeah,
someone else has a suggestion.
Right,
I've got something in mind.
okay.
Be fine. And if, we will have the committee report, Mr. Outlaw, there already. I know several of mine have been meeting virtually.
Mr. Chairman, I'll be saying we're not going to have committee reports.
I think we will have those that have met.
Okay.
Any other comments from commissioners at this time?
What time's that meeting that day?
1:30.
1:30 on the 21st of September.
I had a few items on my list this morning, if the board will bear with us. It's been a while since we met. First item, as you know, after each census, the board is required to do redistricting. And I've asked our manager to just give us a brief idea of how that works so we can start thinking about how this board would wish to move forward with that. Mr. Lamb?
Okay.
If you could.
Be glad to. Within the Constitution, there's a requirement that you have a census conducted each 10 years, and then your representation in Congress and also in state legislatures and local governments are based on that census. As a county that has 7 distinct districts, you are required by law every 10 years to redistrict to make sure that each of the 7 districts are close in population. There are several ways you can do that. I believe the history of this county is the appointment of a committee after 2010. I believe there was a 3-person committee, not commissioners at that time, that drew the plan, got assistance. But I can tell you we have GIS here in the county, the Board of Elections, Mr. Kearney. They would certainly be staff people that would facilitate the drawing of any new districts. It's really up to the board on how to proceed. Once we get the the census information in, and I believe that's by the end of the year. Statutorily, it's required. And then both the General Assembly and county governments that do not have at-large voting will be responsible for coming up with plans that can be used in the 2022 election. So if there's any questions, further questions?
Are you potentially suggesting that we may not need a consultant, that we could do that in-house, which I don't recall we've done? Was that what you meant by that statement or not?
The consultant, I believe y'all used last time, in the county I was in at the time, we came and he gave us a seminar on the redistricting process. But then the staff, county manager, the GIS person, and the Board of Elections person came up with a plan, but it was a much easier plan, it was a county of 15,000 people with 3 districts electing 2 people and 1 at-large. So all we had to do was draw 3 districts out of the existing 3 districts. I would say that this process with 7 distinct districts could be, it might be good to have, as you did last time, an outside consultant, or I believe with the GIS, our elections person, and my background, I could assist in the drawing of those districts. That does put somebody like me in maybe a bad situation if any of the districts are drawn to not satisfy all the board members. I haven't had that problem in the past, but it's certainly possible. So it would depend on the resources. I believe that the committee would want to get, whether they were just internal or whether they want to go outside.
Just to paraphrase what you said in layman's terms, to make sure that I understand it and the board understands it, I think we first of all have an option whether the board chooses to do it themselves or whether we appoint a committee to do it.
Yes, sir.
History of Nash County in my time has been that a committee was appointed to do it. I personally like that better because everything we do politically now seems to have some potential controversy about it, and it would remove this board from that controversy by having an outside agent to do it or an outside committee to do it that we would appoint. And of course, understand that the board is always going to have the last say whether to adopt those districts as presented or not. So you're not out of the process, but you're not doing the actual drawing of the maps itself. The second item, Mr. Lamb, I really think we'd be best, if I recall, it was very minute amount of money we spent on a consultant before, less than $20,000 if I recall, and certainly with the apparatuses and the software that's available now, it may be even less. I would highly recommend that we get someone outside and not put any employee in that situation. I honestly don't think we're gonna have issues, but you just never know with the political environment that we got now, so. I'm not asking us to make any decisions today, but I think we just need to start getting ready for it. And I really feel like the best thing to do is for the board to come up with a committee and to let an outside agent do the mapping for us and give us what we got before. Mr. Belfield, if I remember, we got several alternates and we picked an alternate.
Well, basically, as I recall, we set up a committee of 3.
That's right.
And both parties were represented.
That's correct.
And we had a consultant that worked with them.
Right. And it worked well,
did.
and I think we should do the same thing again.
And no partisanship got hooked up in there where we started arguing with one another. It was, I think, it was done well, the way they did it.
It was done well. We had one little hiccup where, well, I'm not even gonna finish my statement because it's in the rearview mirror and not in the windshield, which I always try to practice. But you're right, the party that had the most members on the board would have 2 members, and the minority party would have 1 member. And the board would be involved in picking who those were. Is that sound reasonable to everybody, just so the manager have an idea of how to move forward with this at the appropriate time? Consensus on that? Anything else we need to discuss, you think?
I would just say that with 7 distinct districts, it really will become a process of adjusting lines more than anything. Your high-growth areas will need to have a reduction and move those people into the contiguous districts. But, of course, when you do that, there's a domino effect on other districts. So I don't believe it's going to be a very difficult chore for the county, given everything, the lack of, I mean, pretty much the same amount of population as 10 years ago, we hope, with the census being done in the middle of a pandemic. There's a lot of concern about the numbers, but it should go very, very smoothly. And I will say that our GIS department, I'm not sure if you didn't use them at all. Basically, the General Assembly's got the software to do it. You don't have to use your local GIS, but it might be that our GIS person will be a resource for.
Mr. Chairman, the last two censuses, I've dealt with a law firm in Raleigh that have experts in this area, and we've dealt with two different members of that law firm.
That did it.
They've assisted us, and their software did it, and they do it for the majority of counties and cities in the
I got
state.
you. What firm is that?
Michael Kroll?
Harrington, Smith, and Hargrove.
Michael Kroll?
Kroll used to be with them, and then he went to School of Government, and then he came back, but one of his associates did it last time for us.
Right.
I can't remember his name off the top of my head.
Yeah, I recall that.
Yeah.
He's married to a girl from Nash County, in fact.
We'll be ready when we get the census numbers to move forward.
Okay, all right, great.
Well,
Ms. Beverly?
I think we ought to be working on the census. Probably a lot of people have not responded. I think about only, the last word I got was about 50% of the people have filed the census papers that they were requested to do.
I think we're at 62% or.
62, 63,
Yeah,
somewhere is the
yeah.
last word I heard.
And 10 years ago, the self-reporting was about 68%, and we're at 62, 63. And we have the enumerators out now, going door to door. So hopefully we'll get that number up to where it needs to be.
Yeah, but
It's a tough year for
The reason I
census.
brought it up because they're getting ready to close it out. The Census Bureau is getting
There's
ready to close it out.
the census report is supposed to end September the 30th. However, at one point, they were going to do it until October 31st. They came back, said, no, we're going to do it September 30th. And I believe there's some lawsuits that have been filed that have I believe, a good chance of success. So, and that's just to make sure that, given the conditions that we're in, that we have a good count. And so.
All right, well, that's good discussion on that. We'll know which direction we're going. Next item I want to discuss just a little bit is, of course, we are back in school to an extent, as we all know. I hear a tremendous amount of conversation out in public about how it's working. Nobody been happy, some been less happy than others, but of course, that's not our charge. But we do generally have a meeting in late October with our school board, and then, of course, one in May, budget time. And if I could, if the board is okay with it, I'd like to ask the manager to set up a preliminary meeting of himself, superintendent, myself, Vice Chairman Outlaw, and their chairman and vice chairman, just to have a brief discussion, get a little update of where they are, primarily to see if they need anything from the Board of Commissioners, and to work on the agenda for the full joint meeting that we would have later on in October. Anybody opposed to doing that? Mr. Lamb, if you could take care of setting that up for us, I'd appreciate it. My next item was, Mr. Lamb, some time ago I asked a question about Red Oak Park. We have Red Oak that wishes to acquire, or the county donate that adjoining property Have we moved any more on that? Vince, are you involved in that? It was a former landfill, and the town of Red Oak wants to put in some passive recreation in that area. I'd like to be able to get rid of that property if we could.
Yeah, my conversations with Mr. Hill was they were going to check with the state and see what restrictions there might be on that property. We would be glad to transfer it to another entity, though those kind of liabilities do not get extinguished upon
Understand that.
sale of property. But Mr. Hill is checking with the state or his engineers with what can be done with that property.
Just looking at my notes, and I did get another call in the last week about it from Red Oak. They wish to use it for parking, additional parking if possible, and some additional trails if possible. If you've been out to Red Oak Park, the town of Red Oak has done a lot of improvement there lately, which has more and more people coming to the park. So take a look at it if you would. But if we could try to bring that to a head so I can give them an answer, that'd be great.
I'll do it.
You see, Mr. Chairman, are you talking about land near the park, or is it land
It's
near
adjacent to
the
the
town
park.
hall?
No, it's adjacent to the park. It's on the
Adjacent to the
Rocky
park.
Mount side of the park property. The wooded area was a former Nash County landfill some years ago. And been closed for a number of years, and Red Oak just has a desire to utilize that land if it is allowed for additional parking. They need more parking and have no more land. And while they were in the process, they wanted to put additional walking trails in that area.
Is it good to use a former landfill for that?
That's the answer we're trying to get.
There have been counties that, both in North Carolina and outside of North Carolina, that have used former landfills as
Recreational area.
recreational parks.
The articles I've read about it, it would look pretty favorable to do that. Of course, it probably depends on what was put in the landfill, I'm sure. And I
Yeah.
don't know much about the history there.
I would think parking and trails would be more conducive than some of the other ideas.
Right.
Like swimming holes and things like that.
I agree with you totally, sir, on that.
But wouldn't it be checked every so often for environmental quality?
We have,
I know
we have to
state
check all our,
usually, I think it'd be our responsibility to do that. But the state, I believe, gonna require it.
they do. They require periodic inspections
Yeah.
for all closed-out landfills.
Ms. Wells, you want me to take a break,
Please.
like right now?
Well, how much more before we can have one?
Well, we probably got about 15 more minutes left on the agenda.
Y'all go ahead and I'll just go.
I'll be glad to, I have no
I
problem.
need one.
Okay, we'll take a 5-minute pause at this time, 10-minute, whatever it takes.
I'm not
For the
on
two ladies to the left. Call us back to order at this time. We finished discussing Red Oak Park. I think we have a little bit more information that's come forward, and if we could just summarize that, it may, Mr. Lamb, mean we may need to go meet with the town of Red Oak or a couple of their people and tell them what the options are when you get it finalized. The next item I had on my commissioner report is the thing that we've talked about several times in the past. Commissioner Outlaw's had some discussions on it over in his area. I've got one going on now with one in Miss Richardson's area, but it involves the fee when you sign up for a tap and don't use it, you pay the minimum. And we've been doing this for about 10 years now, and I do think we're to the point where we need to look at what our policy is and maybe alter it somewhat. In the case that I'm dealing with right now, we've got a person that signed up for a tap. He has since deceased. His family's been paying for it for quite a while. They're not real happy about it. But as I understand it, it goes with the property, kind of like a tax bill, and nothing to do with the individual that signed up for it. Is that correct, Mr. Durham?
That's the way it was intended, yes, sir.
Intended to do. I've been one that didn't particularly want to alter that policy in the past, but with 10 years in, we probably need to do something. So if it's okay with the board, Mr. Lamb, I'd like to ask you to work with Mr. Boone and come up with something that would be fair at some exit point. Mr. Boone gave me some preliminary information a couple of weeks ago that shows we have almost 500 of these, 431 maybe, that are currently paying. We do indeed need the revenue, but at some point, I think we need to establish a outlet on it. Maybe if the person dies, I don't know what the answer is, but if staff could work on coming up with something to present to the board. Does everybody have an interest in doing that? Any objection to it? Okay, we'll ask you to do that, Mr. Lamb, if you would. Just a quick, we don't have a jail report this month, but the process of the new jail is indeed moving along. We have a meeting that we're trying to schedule for next week that will finish up the preliminary design process and move into working drawings. So just to let the board know that that is an ongoing item. It's moving along pretty well. I think we've come to agreement pretty much with the sheriff exactly and his staff what we will be doing and how we'll go about it, what alternatives we'll take. So far that has worked very well, and looking forward to keeping it moving. The school, new school, likewise, the school board, of course, is meeting pretty regular with Oakley and Associates, and where they're at right now, they've got a site plan has been agreed on, the building layout pretty much agreed on as far as concept plans. We are going to have another meeting in the next week or two. As soon as all of Oakley's people get well, I would just say, and are able to meet, we'll get a preliminary design, and then it will be moving into the construction plans as well. So that seems to be doing real well as also. Just a couple more items. We do have some hospital appointments coming up shortly, with a couple of them that will need new members. So if you'll just put that on your list, and if you could advise the board, Stacy, where our current appointees live and which districts they're from, so we know which commissioner currently has a member on the hospital board, and maybe which members do not have a member. I think, Mr. Lamb, we've got a meeting coming up shortly with them to kind of discuss appointments, trying to go in it together, so we'll not have any controversy with the hospital board. So if you just let the board know who currently has a member in that district and who is lacking one, if you would.
Will do. There's a lot of appointments in December, so I'll send something pretty thorough out to everybody
Okay.
to start looking at all of them.
All right, that'd be good. And you know, each month I like to report on the permits. We had another great month in August. Report we got over the weekend with 34 new additional home permits. That's more than one a day, which makes it close to 400 per year. They range from $80,000, the cheapest home, to $380,000, the most expensive home that the permit was pulled for during the month of August. So that still looks very well. They are scattered pretty much in all sections of the county. I don't know if any of y'all read that report that you get, but I'm pretty fascinated by it each time. I will just continue to update you a little bit on that. That's any questions on anything I had to say? I think that was my list. And if not, I will now go back.
Chairman Davis,
Pardon me?
can we come up with a couple of dates to give Ms. Evans
You
for
did
the
ask
joint
me to
meeting
do
with the
that.
school board?
School board meeting that I spoke of, the joint meeting that we have near the end of October, I think we have a hard time scheduling that meeting a lot of times. So could we possibly look at our calendars now and give maybe 3 dates to Janice that we are available on, and does anybody remember what night we normally do it on? I know we generally do it at 6 o'clock,
Like a Tuesday? A Tuesday or a Thursday?
Tuesday or Thursday, and that would be late October or early November. I think we actually did it last year. So maybe the 27th or the 29th of October, does that sound good with anybody?
Is that like the fourth Thursday?
You say at 6 o'clock?
That's when we generally do it. The 29th would be the 5th Thursday.
That's fine, yeah.
The
Not
27th would be the 4th Tuesday.
Either one of those dates is fine with me.
Anybody got any problem with either one of those dates, 27th or 29th of October? You okay, Mr. Belfield?
Yeah, on the 27th, if it's
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock, it'll be okay.
Okay. You want to start with those 2 dates to try? You want one more? We can go, we sure don't want to do it on the 3rd, which is election day. Probably don't want to do it that week.
Or should try that Monday, 26th. So,
A lot of I've got something on the 26th. A lot of meetings already we have on Monday night.
Fourth Thursday might be an option too, to give them several more days.
Right.
The 22nd.
Fourth Thursday would be the 22nd, and the fourth Tuesday would be the 20th.
Yeah, that's 4 options.
That any problem with anybody, either one of those dates? All right. 4 days there then, ma'am.
Thank you.
I believe, Mr. Belfield, we might have a Upper Coastal Plain and Miss Mary on the 20th, Tuesday, October 20th. I think we've got a couple of conflicts on the 20th.
On the 20th, you're talking about that being one of the dates?
They were offering up that as one of the dates.
Well, I have a conflict there because the Upper Coast Plain Council Government meeting is at 6:15 on that date.
Oh, yeah. Well, take the 22nd then, as your third date.
The 26th could be your fourth date, that Monday that Dan mentioned. I mean, if you want
Probably
4
can't do it.
dates.
I got something that
Okay.
night, Wayne, unfortunately.
3 dates should work.
Yep,
Thank you.
thank you. David. What item did I skip on the agenda?
Number 10.
Number 10, okay. Let's go back to item number 10 then, which is the establishment of a natural resource resilience committee. And we will having a presentation by Edward Long, who is now with us. Mr. Long, please come forward. Glad to have you, sir.
This is a committee, like you say, the Natural Resource Resilience Committee. Just read a little bit about the description of it. Nash County citizens have had a history of issues with flooding due to debris in our rivers, streams, and creeks. Tropical storms and hurricanes take an annual toll on our aquatic environments. They create flooding for property owners living along waterways and water-covered roadways, making for dangerous driving conditions for all our citizens. Since September of 2017, Nash County has successfully reached out and written grants for funds to clean out debris from waterways. Oh, is that too late? Okay. Over the past 3 years, Nash County has secured $518,265 to complete projects to clean debris from Stony Creek, the Tar River, and Turkey Creek. Also engaged the USDA's Beaver Dam Removal Program and are currently trapping beavers and removing beaver dams on Turkey Creek. A future project is planned to perform stream debris removing on Fishing Creek, and I would like to say that we got the contract for the grant award for that Friday. So, the need for these projects will be continuous, and other issues with flooding and standing water, such as mosquitoes, will remain issues for the Nash County to mitigate. Therefore, it's suggested that Nash County develop a committee that will focus on these ongoing problems. Below is suggested outline for the establishment of a committee, and I welcome any input from board members have. The purpose of the committee would be to serve as advisory committee to the Nash County Commissioners on issues that may develop before, during, or after high water events or other environmental issues that may arise. Right now, the members will be Willie Harrison. He's one of our local Nash County Soil and Water Board members. Lori Boone from Environmental Health, a Forest Service representative, myself, and 2 citizens, Tim Bartholomew and Bill Lewis. And we look to meet bi-monthly. Our objectives would be to develop strategies to mitigate high water events and issues that arise with these events, identify areas that have reoccurring events and other possible solutions or options for those affected, and to educate the public on how to become more resilient to these events. And our long-term goal would be to offer viable strategies and plans that could be implemented to mitigate the effects of high water events in Nash County. Any questions?
Questions of committee members? Mr. Long, are you open for suggestions as it relates to potential other members?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that can be suggested to you?
Yes.
Okay. I'll leave it up to the board then. Comments or questions about this?
I just got a question. Do you have a handle on how far or if any beaver dam removal's been done on Turkey Creek yet? I seen the guy in there trapping, but I didn't know if they took out any of the dams or what. Do you know?
I believe he has removed a few. Early on, he was going to remove some, and then he said some of the storm events we had wiped them out, so, but he's still working. I haven't heard from him in the last couple of weeks.
I hadn't seen him around for a while, so I didn't know.
Okay.
Can't tell the water level dropped any. I didn't know.
Mr. Belfield?
What do you think of the idea, and I'm not asking this because I would want to serve on the board, or just ask, what do you think of the idea of a commissioner being on that committee?
That's fine. That's up to y'all.
Other comments?
Have the 2 citizens that are listed here been notified and agreed to serve? I know I've spoken to Mr. Bartholomew about this, and he is receptive to it, but to formally,
I haven't asked him formally, but
Okay.
I know Mr. Lewis, Bill Lewis, I talked with him, and he said he was willing.
yeah,
Wayne, is that the gentleman that kind
Green Hills.
of, right, okay.
Yeah.
So I thought it was. Good. Okay.
One thing I might mention to you is, every time they lower the water in the reservoir, I get a notification. It might be a good idea for this committee or some member of this committee to get that same notification. I know every time I get it, I pass it to Mr. Bartholomew, because he's always very interested in that,
Okay.
with these high water events.
Mr. Leggett, you and I had a brief discussion on this item a little bit ago. And do you have any thoughts you wish to add to it?
I have a particular interest in this as well. I think me and you've had conversations before, not just streams, but actually rivers and large bodies of water, that this certainly needs to be a priority. So I commend you for putting this committee together and proposing this idea.
Mr. Long, do you think we'd have any advantage of having anyone from our EMS department potentially serving here that may have knowledge of grants that might be available in this area? Just a question, because I don't know.
That's a option we can look into.
I do know we have and it's probably irrelevant, but I'm thinking about Stony Creek has that swift water team that get called out quite frequently. I don't know whether that would be an added advantage or not. Sue, being in agriculture, would you be willing to serve on the committee if the board so chooses?
Certainly, I'd be pleased to.
Because think you would have with more interest, or more potential liability and interest than possibly anyone else. I just caution y'all about the beaver dam that Dan brought up. That seems to be something you can't win on, but everybody knows that already.
Well, you have to keep on after.
You got to keep on keeping on. I do fully understand that. I do. Anything else? So you are asking us to approve the establishment of a committee?
Yes, sir.
That's the request. Would the board, how would you like to go about looking into a potential, I think we can handle commissioners here, a commissioner this morning, but why don't maybe the board, once we do that, and establish a committee, look at possibly if there's anyone in EMS that could potentially help you as well. Ms. Belfield, do you have any issue with Ms. Leggett serving on there? I do believe in agriculture, it would be something closest to her. You say no? Okay. If you're willing to serve, anybody object to that? Seeing none, we just ask you to add Ms. Leggett on there as well then, and then look into the EMS thing. If there's no other discussion, I'd entertain a motion to give Mr. Long the right to establish the committee.
So moved.
Have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
And second by Ms. Wells. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Thank you, sir. I appreciate you bringing it to us.
No problem.
We finished up item number 19, and so we'll move to item number 20, which is the manager report. Mr. Lamb, turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. First of all, I want everyone to know that I think y'all know that the tax bills have gone out for this year.
Yes, I do, sir.
And they did get out in August, and we've gotten a good response so far. The second thing I had was the building permits, and I appreciate the chairman keeping an eye on those. That is such an important thing for our budget and for future tax rates. The fact that we're able to expand our tax base month after month, year after year, in recent years has been of great benefit to the county. I did send out the preliminary report on the first month of sales tax collections. It's actually paid in July taxes for the month of June. We will receive them around the 10th or 15th of September, but we have gotten notice of the amount. It was right at 1.65 million, which is the largest single month collection for Nash County that I can find, and I don't believe we ever had one prior to our time here that large.
Can you enlighten us on that? That just doesn't
counterintuitive.
Yes. Thank you. I don't know them big words. That's what I'm trying to say.
But well, you know, we budgeted this year 15,947,000. So you can see the first month we're above 10%. How do I explain it? It seems like people are going to the Lowe's and to the Walmarts. They're doing a lot of online buying, Amazon, and we now get those sales tax. I think that might be a big deal, whereas 5-10 years ago, we weren't getting sales tax on a lot of mail order stuff. We're pretty much getting them across the board now, so that's a big deal. I also wonder about whether some of the nonprofits that get tax refunds have actually asked for them, being that we've been in the middle of COVID-19. We did get our tax refund back, but I'm not sure about the city and the school system or the hospital. We get a yearly report, confidential report, and we have not requested that this year, but I am a little concerned that all may hit us at one time and we'll have a real bad month, but as we've seen in the past. But it's, it's just takeout on food. We don't have a Crabtree or a North Hills or Cameron Village that was shut down in the same way that Wake County was affected.
Does the automobile tax we pay on sales tax show up in that same report?
The sales tax portion does.
On automobile?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you notice any spike there, or did you look at that specifically?
I do know that our motor vehicle collections
That's up, I know.
continue to go up, which suggests there are sales because each year the value of a vehicle goes down, and when you buy a new one, it's valued at the max. So we can get further information on that.
I was just wondering. I'm
Yeah.
trying to figure it out, because like you say, whatever that word was.
Counterintuitive. Yeah.
I read last week where the sales have really picked up on used cars, and the price has gone up. So that means even you're buying used cars, the sales tax is going to be
Going up.
a little higher too.
Right. Yeah, it's, we were anticipating for the last 6 months a drop in sales tax, and we have not seen that. So we're very fortunate there. And as the chairman said, building permits continue to go on. The recording fees in the Register of Deeds office for deeds and deeds of trust continue at a high pace. So it does appear that Nash County is doing good economically. Of course, we've already talked about the second meeting this month on Monday, September 21st at 1:30. Talked about the census. I will say that election costs could be greater than what we budgeted. The number of hours of early voting has been extended. Mr. Kearney has not requested any additional funds, but I just wanted y'all to know that we may be next year before we need to do it, but at some point we're gonna we may need to find some extra money for poll workers and early voting. And I would like to take this opportunity again, I know I've done it before, to thank Doris Sumner and the tax office for their excellent work during the last few years. She had to wait to take the assessor's exam because of COVID, and when she took it, she passed it, and we're very proud of her and her staff for the hard work they do. The 99.06% collection rate really was unexpected given COVID, and they worked it hard and continue to. And just generally, I'd like to thank the Health Department and Bill Hill, EMS, Emergency Services, DHS, the maintenance staff, Veteran Services, who's been very busy, and even our senior citizen staff that has gone to a virtual approach to dealing with the seniors. Just everybody, IT, everybody has really come through during COVID-19, and we continue to try to keep a safe work environment for all our employees. We do have quite a few employees that have taken the option of the COVID sick leave, as well as daycare being out of the office, taking leave due to daycare. That's mainly in the DHS, Department of Social Services, I mean. We do have quite a few employees in that department that have elected to take leave up to 12 weeks. That's all I have. If there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer those questions.
Any questions of,
I just got a couple of questions. One of them you can probably answer, the other probably not, but you can get an answer. Back to the high water events, there's a home that sits at the intersection of Old Carriage and Regis Store Road. And that home, every time we have a high water event, it floods. It's vacant now, and it was my understanding back when Miss Nixon was here that that home had been handled through FEMA and it was to be taken down. Could you just kind of follow up on that? It's growing up and looking pretty rough right now.
Sure, I'll
We
check into
have
that.
acquired the property, and I think she's in the process of going out on bids to.
Okay, good, so that's in process. The second thing, you talk about safety, and I certainly in support of that, and I know we've got a great health department, and you stay on top of that. But when we go to the polls on October the 15th, there are going to be some people that are going to come to the polls that are going to be uncomfortable with people approaching them with literature, et cetera. Are there going to be any recommended guidelines or any safety practices put in place? Has any thought been given to that for the voting polls? If not, it probably should be.
Yeah, I think that's something that the Board of Elections would attempt to regulate. There are existing state laws and rules, adopted rules statewide on distancing, things like that, approaching voters. But I will check in.
I don't have any problem with someone approaching me when they've got a mask on. You know,
Right.
got a mask on, but
All right.
I know I talk to some people, they're very uncomfortable with being approached at all.
Yeah.
So just something to think about.
Yeah, I think.
I don't want us to have a big problem out there.
Right, I don't either. I know Mr. Kearney has never had a bad election. And a bad election is when you have appeals to the state, and as far as I know, he hadn't, and I know I haven't, and we want to have a very successful, I think where the public, I know there's a debate about mail-in ballots, but really where I think we're going to see an increase is the voters who come to vote early or on election day curbside. I know that's what I've recommended to my parents that they do, curbside
Talking about
voting.
distancing, something to identify distancing, and when you go in to vote, and
Yeah.
I go to Walmart every week, and, you know, it's not bad in there, and you got room to move around to keep your distance and do what you need to do, but you're gonna
Yeah.
have people lined up out there, and there needs to be some recommendations. You can't make
Yeah.
people do anything.
I do believe that the Board of Elections and the staff are working on those issues. As I think I said at the last meeting, the early voting instead of Braswell is going to be at the old Gateway building, and they've gotten all the procedures where you go in one door and come out the other, and So they are very on top of that. The state elections people are making recommendations. I will convey to Mr. Kearney the concern you expressed.
I'm sure he's thought about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Any other questions, Mr. Lamb? Mr. Lamb, one more thing comes to my mind that I would like to do in closed session. Vince probably would prefer I didn't, but with the two public comments we had today, I'd like for you to consider formulating a couple of commissioners, Mr. Tyson, and several members of the public to work on trying to resolve or come to some means, and I certainly want a user of the cannons. One of them has actually volunteered to work together with us to work on something that we can not all agree on, but make it better than what it is. And I'll give you that name after the meeting, but also on the gun range, that problem is not going to go away. I don't know what we need to do. I started getting calls early Saturday morning. I got my first call about 20 minutes to 8, I think it was, from someone in that area, and the sheriff doesn't have a lot of interest in going out there with the current ordinance we have, which I fully understand. I did call him Saturday morning, had a discussion with him about it, but there's really nothing he can do because he can't prove they charged for it and can't prove they didn't charge for it. We just in a dilemma, and it's going to be, that particular one is going to be very touchy with gun rights as they are on the forefront now. You okay?
Yeah.
I'll pause a minute.
I'm sorry.
But I think maybe a couple of commissioners, some people from the citizens, from the public that's involved in each one of these items, to just look at our ordinance and see what we could do to improvement, and I'd certainly be glad to hear from any other board members their thoughts. Mr. Bellfield?
Oh, I was just gonna say, it sounds like that's the same person that's running the activity range within the southern part of the county, and I think where he was operating off, the owner of it sold it, and he had to get out, and so he moves over here, and
I'm not sure what you mean by that statement, but may well be.
well,
The one that Mr. Hardy
it's
addressed.
the same because his brother contacted me when they had moved from over there. Yeah,
Well, not looking at any particular thing, but we obviously got a problem here that's,
yeah, I
Our people
realize,
aren't happy with
and it's one that we need to deal with.
yeah, got to come up with something, and I've thought about both of them, but I sure don't have an answer for them. But sometime, maybe over the winter, let's work on that before we get back into another season, and see what we can do with it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
could I ask that Mr.
Absolutely.
Hardy be considered as the member of that committee?
I certainly would think he should be.
I think it would be important that he be a member of that committee, and also, I think it would be important to try to go ahead and determine the makeup of that committee and let the committee members know at the earliest possible date that that's something that we're going to undertake. And hopefully, like the chairman said, by next season, maybe we can have some reasonable compromise that everybody can live with.
I'd like to have Miss Battle as well be considered. She seems like a very reasonable lady.
Who is that, sir?
The other speaker here, Miss Battle, at
Yes.
the,
Well,
public comment.
she's a different situation. She's,
Yeah, I'm gonna tie it all together and have a work on the noise
Okay.
ordinance, if that's okay. Ms. Richards?
Because it sounds like we need to work on our UDO for the noise ordinance. That still would include both issues.
It would.
The noise ordinance.
It would.
But we need to, I think, go back in and put some wording in it, because to me, having an ordinance that you can't enforce is not worth 2 cents. So we need to put some wording in there that's gonna protect our folks. And you know, when you do these ordinances sometimes, when you do them, we do them with the best of intentions. But you can't foresee everything that's coming down the line. So when you
No,
run-
I
when you
mean-
run up against issues like this,
Right.
we need to go back and look at them.
Sure.
Do we need to change something? It's not working. We need to put something in or take something out to make this gonna work. Because it's gotta be something in there that we can have a little control over these situations, because nobody should have to live in these situations. That's just not a good human society to live in. So I think that's one of the things to look at, and have those people on that committee, and just go back and redo the UDO that can put those words in there that's gonna be enforced, and we'll protect our citizens, because that's our responsibility to do that,
When we can, I agree with you.
okay?
Yep.
I'd like to ask the attorney a question. It looks like to me the noise ordinance would solve the problem with the guns because it's not agricultural. I see that in there, but it looks like to me the noise ordinance would.
You mean with the propane cannon?
No.
No, the
Oh.
shoot.
That's agriculture. If that's agriculture, I'm talking about the shooting range. It looks like to me the noise ordinance would end that problem if we'd enforce it.
Right.
Only if, only
Well, our current
up
ordinance,
to the type of enforcement you can obtain.
But it says if it's annoying, and I ain't on that page, if
Yeah.
it's annoying to me in the neighborhood and we complain about it, then, loud mufflers are annoying. Why not shoot? Because I have that happen at my house once in a while, and I kind of, but they'll shoot for 2 or 3 hours, just boom, 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 and I don't have a problem with it, but it ain't real close, it's just far enough I can hear it. But if it's that annoying, it looks like the noise ordinance we got would address that problem.
just something we need to look into as we get out of the fall season, if we could.
Did you mention that someone from the sheriff's department would be on that?
It definitely should be, absolutely.
Because I had talked to sheriff about that. It didn't help much, but at least I did, and
Yep,
I even talked to a couple of deputies that knew Mr. Williams.
right.
And we have just talked about trying to resolve it, but he seemed to be a person that, I'm gonna do what I wanna do, and that's it. But we need to have more control over that than we have.
One thing we need to do, if you're looking at changing something that's going to directly affect agriculture and what agricultural producers do, that there's someone there from that industry that is represented.
I actually would ask that one of the persons that is currently involved be involved in it. I didn't name a name, but, and he has agreed to be involved in it, so.
Good.
I think that would certainly help, and you get that many sides in a room, you may indeed need a deputy present at the meeting. And you could take care of that, couldn't you? You could take care of having us a deputy involved, couldn't you? Any other comments on that? I apologize for bringing it up, but I just think we got to look at it at some point. No need of our people coming up here mad every month. All right, that's all I had. Any other comment from commissioners? If not, I would entertain a motion to go into closed session. Closed session will be for economic development, matters of attorney-client privilege, consideration of purchase of real property by the county, and a personnel item. Maybe 2 personnel
I
items.
move we go into closed session.
All right, have a motion to go into closed session for those items, and a second by Commissioner Combs, motion by Commissioner Belfield.
You gotta go out.
Any questions on the motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign, and for the press that is probably viewing, if we take any action, we will be back out front. I don't really anticipate any, but certainly it will be recorded that you could look at.
Okay.
Stand recessed to closed session.